As a cosplayer, there are many elements that create the iconic wardrobe donned by Harrison Ford as the world's most beloved archaeologist, Indiana Jones. Whether it's the safari shirt, the leather jacket, or the trusty brown fedora, when these elements come together, and you look at yourself in the mirror, or you're walking through a con, you, or somebody on the floor, sees Indiana Jones, not the cosplayer. And in the many years that I've been cosplaying as this character, there's one part of that element that is sometimes overlooked by newcomers. And I should know, because I was guilty of it myself a long time ago. And that is the boot. This is one of a pair of gorgeous 25-year-old Alden 405s in a perfect Raiders of the Lost Ark pumpkin color. This is the same model boot that Harrison Ford wore as a carpenter and asked production if he could use instead of the Red Wings that were bought for Indy's costume. And I understand why. I have owned a lot of boots in my life, and I've always said, oh, this is the most comfortable pair of boots I've owned, this is the most comfortable pair of boots I've owned, yada yada, etc., etc. But in the case of the Alden 405, that statement is incredibly true. Whether I'm in full regalia or street clothes, these babies pop. They are conversation starters because they are slick, they are dressy, and they're just built very well. I really understand now why Harrison wore these instead of the Red Wings. It's a good overall boot. But I haven't always had the pleasure of owning Aldens. I actually only got this pair this year, 2024. Before then, before I owned any of what you see on screen, I had to, like most cosplayers starting out, make do with what I had in my closet. And it wasn't screen accurate, but it was good for the time. And as I've grown, as I've learned, as I've accumulated some of the most incredible gear I have ever had the honor of owning, you learn stuff. You learn the best alternatives. And today, I want to talk to you about those. Hello, my fellow Raiders, Doomers, Crusaders, Scullies, and Dialers of Destiny. It is I, Nathan, back again after a very long hiatus, with another Indiana Jones cosplay video.
Well, if the boot fits...
Say that again.
If the boot fits.
So, Indy's boot. The boot. While this is an incredible boot, it's a luxury item, and you're paying luxury prices for it. And not everybody can afford that, and that's fine. This is not Second World War reenacting. We are not going to crucify you for not having the most accurate of accurate things. This is a fun hobby, and whatever you can get is whatever you can get. When I started, all the way back in 2008, 2009, I was wearing a pair of square-toed Chelsea boots. Don't ask why, that's not even close, but I did it. And from there, I upgraded to a pair of Payless brown boots. And then from there, I went to a pair of replica Type 2 service boots from World War II Impressions, because I got it in my mind for the longest time. Again, don't ask why. I don't even know. But I was so certain for the longest time that Indy's boots were Type 2 service shoes. I guess I just kind of saw the silhouette and went, yeah, same thing. But I wore my Second World War replica Type 2s that I used to wear when I did World War II reenacting. I wore those every time I got up into Indy regalia. And I wore those literally until they fell apart. They fell apart in August of 2021 when I was hanging out with Trent Ryan and Kirk Brockman in Colorado after the Colorado Con. I came back to Trent's townhouse and I took them off, and they literally, the seams snapped and those boots died. And I was very fortunate in the fact that my good buddy Morgan Loff, who I can also thank for these boots, found me the best alternative, the absolute, in my opinion, peak econ indie boot. these Bostonian hiking boots are the answer. I loved this boot, and this, to me, is the best starter boot. The color is magnificent. It weathers really well, so it looks well worn, like you've been on a dozen adventures as Indy. It has the mock toe style, and overall, just you cannot go wrong with these. You can find them on Amazon, you can find them on eBay, you can find them on Mercari. These are readily available boots. Now, what's weird is that they are sometimes marketed as women's hiking boots. They're not. They're unisex. But this is an excellent economic alternative to the 405. Prices vary depending on where you go, and sometimes the brown is not always in stock on Amazon, which sucks. But sometimes these are like $115, $120, but I've seen them go as low as $50. And it all just depends on like when you find them, how well stocked you're buying them is from. It's just a luck of the draw, I guess. But these are the best starter indie boot. And then I upgraded to the Wested Adventure boot. Found these on eBay for $80. And that's a steal because if you buy them directly from Wested or from Wested's Etsy page, you're looking at a price point of $130 to I think $140 flat. And unfortunately, that's just how it is because these are imported from England, just like the jackets. So you gotta pay import fees. But these are the next best step because they have the correct white stitching of the mock toe as to where with Bostonian they use brown thread. And as you can see with the Wested Adventure boots, these are a much darker, richer brown color. But when you're able to weather them up, they have this really nice rustic undertone, almost what you see on Indy's jacket whenever it's weathered properly. What I will say about these boots that the Bostonians do have over them is that Wested uses very thick boot leather, and so you have to break these in over a course of a couple weeks, and these can be very uncomfortable. A lot of people I've spoken to who buy these usually ask, hey, is it worth the pain of breaking these in? And I've been very honest. Yes, it's very much worth it, especially when you weather them, when you wear them day to day. It's worth the pain of breaking them in. If I could make a recommendation to anyone who wants to buy these boots, I have two. Number one, get some gel insoles, because having worn these boots a lot and having worn these boots on Disney Adventure days, it can get really uncomfortable really easy. And if you're somebody who cannot do the cork sole of either the Wested or the actual Alden, then go to a cobbler and have them switched out for low profile commando lugs, because that will also provide a lot of comfort. And it'll also help if you actually go on any adventures, you'll have legitimate grip on your boots. Because I've noticed that with the Westeds and with the Aldens, because of the cork soles, if you're on a little bit of a wet terrain, you start ice skating when you didn't mean to. And even when you're climbing down a slightly steep incline, you'll have trouble catching onto something. So I would recommend that if you want to wear these or Aldens as actual adventure boots, switch out the soles if that's possible. If you have a cobbler who's competent and confident to properly do that, because I don't think you'll be upset either way. But the Wested Adventure boot is excellent. Yes, the price point is a little bit higher in the $130 to $140 range, and a lot of people cannot get into breaking in a pair of boots, as to where with the Bostonians, they're very easy to wear. It's very thin, modern shoe leather, so it's a little bit more comfortable. But this is much more stout. And if you actually want to go adventuring around, if you want to rough up a pair of boots, you cannot go wrong with these Westeds. These options that I've given are just my personal opinion. What works for me may not always work out for you, but that is the fun, that is the adventure itself of learning what works and what doesn't. And I will get on to actually reviewing these because I know a lot of people have been curious about my thoughts. I have a hard time choosing them to wear because I love them so much and I just don't want to get them messed up. And then I keep saying to myself, Harrison Ford literally wore these as a carpenter. He wore them as Indiana Jones. They're meant to get roughed up. And it's just hard for me to remember that because these are such sharp, good-looking boots. But I love the Aldens. And if you're watching this video to just finally get that push to pull the trigger, whether it's on a new pair of Aldens or a vintage pair like what I have here, if you have the money, if you want to do it, go for it. Whether you're buying these strictly for cosplay or for the joy of owning Aldens, which is a very nice brand of shoe, you're not going to be disappointed. I've rarely run into a person who has been disappointed by owning a pair of Aldens, and the only reason they've shared their disappointment with me is because they bought an incorrect size, because English sizing is much, much different from American sizing, and it could be very confusing. I was incredibly lucky with this pair. The gentleman who sold them wore them literally once, and was not crazy about the size. I got them, and they just slid right onto my feet, and I've been wearing them ever since. I wish I'd had these boots when I was at the Indy 5 premiere, because this is the indie boot. Like my brother Kirk, I will say that you can get the 405 or you can get the 403, because I would actually say that the Wested Adventure boot is a little closer to the 403 in style and color. The 403 is a little bit darker than the 405, and a lot of people want that darker color. And the darker color comes from constant wear, comes from shining and just, you know, proper boot care over many, many years. And if you don't want to wait that long, Wested has got you covered because of these gorgeous dark boots, and so does Bostonian. Because that's another thing when it comes to indie cosplay, is that people have preferences over the color and over like the consistency of what their pieces look like. So that's another thing to factor in. Are you looking for a pristine pair of boots that you can genuinely scuff up over the years, or are you looking for something that already looks worn in, that already has that storied appearance of being worn on many, many adventures? Because if you're looking for that, the Bostonian already has that semi-weathered appearance, and again, these weather super easy, so they look great. And then when you can weather the Westeds, they do an even better job at appearing like an old, beat up adventure boot. I'm sure that there's going to be somebody who's going to ask me about the Magnolia adventure boot. I have not personally owned a pair, but I do know people who own them. And to be quite honest, and this is the same opinion that they gave me, go with Wested. Wested is just a better choice. And with that, that's it, because I could just ramble on about boots for hours, and I don't think you want to be here for that. But if you want to hear me ramble on about some other Indiana Jones stuff, specifically my favorite film in the franchise, Last Crusade, I'm going to leave a link to my buddy Kevin Indiana Jones and his wonderful talk show, The Kevin Indiana Jones Show, in which I was the third interviewee. And I was very, very honored to be a part of that show. I had a wonderful time. Kevin is an excellent host. He's just a very easy guy to talk to. He's interviewed 3 other friends of mine in the indie space, all of which is on his YouTube channel, which, again, I will leave linked in the description below. Please go watch that. Go watch him. Go subscribe. He is an excellent content creator, and he's an excellent friend. But with that, brings us to the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you all so much for watching. Fortune and glory, kid. I'll see you in the next one.